Boom. Let's dig in. Is the ancient Egyptian language older than Hebrew or Aramaic? Here is the answer. Yes, the ancient Egyptian language is significantly older than Hebrew. Its written records begin centuries before the earliest evidence of the Hebrew language. Gives you a date. You can challenge the date or what have you. Okay. But both ancient Egyptian and Hebrew belong to the same larger language family called Afro-Asiatic. That's African and Asian languages. Put that together. However, they are in different branches of this family and are not closely related. A shared distant ancestor. Because they are both part of the Afro-Asiatic family, ancient Egyptian and Hebrew share a very distant prehistoric common ancestor. The Semitic branch, which Hebrew belongs to, is believed to have split from the larger Afro-Asiatic family thousands of years ago, before the first written records of either language. Okay. Now, when I'm talking about Abraham and Muhammad and Hammurabi and all the names with Ham in it and things of that nature, that will be more closely related to the African languages in which ancient Egyptian is a part of. But this is what I want you to pay attention to. Since we know that the ancient Egyptian language is older than Aramaic, we're going to tap into the moon god. Okay. The moon god Aya. All right. Aya is connected to Tahuti, right? And when it comes down to Tahuti, you know, he's the god of wisdom. He's also considered the moon god, right? Tahuti gave the DNA script code to Neter-Noom, right? And you know, Neter-Noom created on the potter's wheel. And like I said, this has played out creating with clay in Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Let's go down and read a little bit about the god Aya, right? Aya is a lunar deity in ancient Egyptian religion. The word Jah simply means moon, okay? So when we talking about the sun god and the moon god, right? This is not just about the gods with the titles. This is also about us as the original cultivators of civilization that brought religion, right? This is the usurping of our power when you talk about the sun in rulership and the moon in rulership, okay? Jah simply means moon. It is also transcribed as Yah, Jah, Ah, and Aya. I guess that's how you would pronounce that. You see the crescent. You see the moon and the crescent, right? So the crescent was used before. The crescent was used in Islam. Okay? When you go back, though, before Islam was created and things of that nature, you got to think about the ancient Egyptian empire. It stretched outside of Africa, northern Africa, into Asia, into Iraq. All right, there's the moon. That's the name in the hieroglyphics, right? Aya was an early personification of the moon in ancient Egypt. He is the male moon god that preceded Khonsu. Aya, whose name simply means moon, he appears in texts from the Middle Kingdom and later became associated with Thoth and Khonsu. Aya is depicted in human form as a beautiful young man with skin as fair and white as milk in stories as could be represented as a human figure wearing a lunar disc and crescent. Okay, he may have been depicted as that, but that's a depiction, and there wouldn't have been no white people, milky white people in rulership at that time. In later times, his role diminished as Khonsu absorbed many. By the New Kingdom, 16th century to the 11th century BC, he was less prominent than other gods with lunar connections. Okay, 11th century BC is when Hebrew came, right? As a result of the functional connection between them, he could be identified with either of those. As time went on, Aya also became Aya Jehuti, meaning God of the new moon. In this role, he assumed the lunar aspect of Thoth, also known as Jehuti, who was the god of knowledge, writing, and calculation. So when you have calculation there, right, then Tehuti was the human computer, right? Computer means one who calculates. So think about the knowledge we are receiving now versus the knowledge that was being received then. Okay? It was coming straight from the mind. Aya was also assimilated with Osiris, god of the dead, perhaps because in its monthly cycle, the moon appears to renew itself. If you take the same approach and look up Sin, this is also the Akkadian moon god known as Nana, right? The Mesopotamian god representing the moon. Before there was moon gods, there were sun gods, okay? While these two names originate in two different languages respectively, Akkadian and Sumerian, they were already used interchangeably to refer to one deity in the early dynastic periods. They were sometimes combined into the double name Nana Shuen. A third well-attested name is Dalim Babar. Additionally, the name of the moon god could be represented by logograms reflecting his lunar character as 30, referring to the days in the lunar month, and Yusakar, right? It's interesting that Adam's name is also Zakar, derived from a term referring to the crescents. Okay, so right there we have two distinct links of understanding and representation in two different places. Let's see if we can get a date when Sin was worshipped or known. A distinct tradition in which he was regarded either as a god of equal status as the usual heads of the Mesopotamian pantheon, going back to Enlil and Anu, or as a king of the gods. Okay, so the crescent represents him. We got a picture right there. All right, so that crescent is Sin, right? That goes back to 2100 BC. He is also a bull god. You gotta do research on the bull gods, right? Siblings, his parent, his dad is Enlil. Children, Inanna, Ishtar, Utu, Shamash, right? Marazu. But I want to see when he was worshipped. The main co-center of sin was Where is Ur? Ur of Chaldees, dealing with Abraham. Okay, let's look at the early dynastic period. The early dynastic period is an archaeological culture in Mesopotamia, modern day Iraq, that is generally dated 2900 to 2350 BC. Okay. The language of ancient Egypt is older than this date. But this predates Abraham. Okay. So when you trace the lineage of Abraham back through his fathers, let's see if we can find that. All right, we got a descendancy of Abraham right here, right? So you got Noah, you got to hit Shem, you got to hit Arphaxad, right? You got to hit Eber. Remember, Eber split. Boom. You go down to Joktan, though, those are all Muslims. All right, but you got to go through Peleg, Sarug, Nahor, Terah, Abraham. Sarah is his sister. We don't know who Abraham's mom is, right? And then you got the sons, the Ishmaelites. And you got Isaac, Esau, the Edomites, Jacob, right? And Jacob brings the 12 tribes. Okay. But Terah, Nahor, Sarug, Ru, Peleg, there is no recording, and where would you find it, of Abraham's line, right, worshiping Yahweh and not sin. Okay, sin is mentioned in the book as the action against God, right? Terah, okay. Let's go back. Okay, we're back at the God sin. And so this information, right, or the worshiping of these gods, Abraham's fathers would have worshipped these gods. Okay. Because really, when you look at it, right, that's really the break when Abraham leaves the Ur of Chaldees, leaves his father's knowledge, his father's information, right? So impression of the cylinder seal of Hashemer, Insi, governor of Ixum Sin, this 2100 BC. The seated figure is probably King Namu. Now, it says that Abraham was born 2166 BC. Sin himself is indicated in the form of a crescent. So all this appears to be, when you're dealing with that religion, is that it was just carried over and borrowed over and consolidated, right? It was consolidated. Okay. This is where he was. The main code center of sin was Ur. He was already associated with this city in the early dynastic period and was recognized as its tutelary deity and divine ruler. This is important too. Tutelary, right, is a deity or a spirit who is a guardian, a patron, or a protector of a particular place, geographic feature, person, lineage, nation, culture, or occupation. In the late Greek and Roman religion, one type of tutelary deity, the genius, functions as the personal deity or daemon of an individual from birth to death. Another form of personal tutelary spirit is the familiar spirit of European folklore. Let's go down and let's look at Christianity. Archangels, okay, will be the tutelary spirits. Hinduism, Ishtar Devata, Shiva, and then the many gods. Well, let's check out Judaism. Spirits called Shadim are mentioned twice in the Hebrew Bible. In both of these instances, Psalm 106:37 and Deuteronomy 32:17, the Shadim are associated with the child sacrifice or animal sacrifice. Okay. The term Shadim is believed by some to be a loan word from the Akkadian Shadu. Isn't that interesting? Which referred to a spirit which could be either protective or malevolent. Okay, it could be evil. All right, and you know why that would be borrowed if it was borrowed over or carried over from the Akkadian, because Akkadian predates that language. Okay, let's hit African. Allah Igbo, Mamba, Muntu, Mama Wata, Mammy Wata, Nakisi, Bakongo. Now, when you start getting into the Bakongo understanding and breakdowns of the spirit world and the physical world, you kind of look at line science, right? In far as graphs, charts, diagrams, and things of that nature, information would be uh, revolutionized, right, from the Bakongo religion. That's the key that I have, right? You got Simbi, Yamoja, Yoruba, Orisha, right? Socrates spoke of hearing the voice of his personal spirit or daemonian, okay? Demons and all of that stuff. You know, like our information says, the gods and goddesses that went nowhere, they've basically changed their names through language. The genius is the individual instance of a general divine nature that is present in every individual person, place, or thing. So when they calling you a genius, that's just like saying that you are possessed by the genius, right? Let's go back to our original concept, though. There we go. Okay, so yeah, so moon information is just that. It's a lesser power frequency for the mind, right? When we say moon god, it's like uh listening to the mankind, straight hair mankind races. It's like saying that straight hair mankind races is your origin. Okay, the truth of the matter is the light from the moon comes from the sun. And that should let you know something right there. So you got sun brains and you got moon brains. Okay? And these two brains is not vibrating on the same frequencies. This God right here is another indicator that things were carried over. Right? Now let's go down and see where he was kicking it at. Okay. This is why it's less information to me, is because he wasn't even, he's like a lesser God. Middle Kingdom. Was he where Thoth was? Where was he worshipped at? Now look, this is how you know Thoth, that's not his true name. Because it's from the Koine Greek, right? And then you got to go to the ancient Egyptian, which is Jehut. That's his name. It's not Thoth. So every time the guys' names change, the information about them change, and what they can do can change based on understanding of the language. The language is a spell, right? Language is a spell. Let's show you that. See, you're going to see they got two breakdowns of the spell, right? The first one is a verb. This one is not, we're not concerned with this one right here, but it can apply. Because it says pronounce and recite on it. So you go through that to tell. Oh, mind you, these is Indo-European words, right? And so we already under the spell because of that. Okay. We are already under the spell because of that. Like language, like when people speak other languages outside English, that means they have a different interpretation of the world based on their words. You understand what I'm saying? I mean, language is in a sense deep, right? And that will be a dope power to have if you could speak everybody's language. Okay. Imagine if you can speak everybody's language and then morph into what they look like at the same time and still be you on the inside, right? Spell. Let's keep going. Klein. To say aloud, I'm black and I'm proud. Recite, speak with emphasis, right? Greek, apile, however you would say that. That's a threat. A spell could be a threat. If you say, I curse you, right? In the name of, you feel me? To speak, preach, spell, and preach. Talk, tell. Spell out. But this is the one right here we want to deal with. See, this is a noun. It's not a verb. It's a noun. It's a person, place, or a thing. Just like the Holy Ghost is a noun. It's a person, place, or a thing. They said it's a divine person. Right? That's deep. If spirits are people, spirits are persons, let's go through it. Old English 800. Okay, so the customs and the traditions and the religious mind of the people I don't know if y'all watch them type of movies. I like to watch them type of movies where they old English people, the medieval times, right? Because you see what type of people they were, right? Middle English, Old English. These people would have the lowest overstanding or lowest understanding of who God really is. Okay, when this language came, think about when I showed you the ancient Egyptian language. Then you gotta think about the Akkadian and Ugaritic, the Sumerian languages, Aramaic, Arabic. Okay, boom, down the line. Spell, sermon, religious instruction. Okay, report, discourse, tale, fable, myth. The oldest census are obsolete from 1200. An utterance, something said, a statement, a remark, and that's what's powerful, and that's what we're not getting right. The utterance. Who are we calling upon? What power is there for us? I know it's hard to believe your own people versus older white people who wrote a book that appears to be ancient to some people. Like white people wrote them books as books. Black people have something to do with it, but when it comes down to the compilation of the King James Version of the Bible, you see what I'm saying? An utterance, something said, a statement, remark, the meaning, set of words which suppose magical or occult powers, incantation, and charm. Hence, any occult influence or means or cause of enchantment. They don't use that no more. Okay. Casting or reciting of spells, charm for protection from evil spirits. Do we have the same worry about evil spirits? Who is evil spirits to all the straight haired mankind races? They'll say they're black. Who do we think the evil spirits are when it comes down to people with sun original hair, sun hair? The ghost is white. Black and white is gray. That's gray matter. That's brain. Okay. That's the chessboard. That's the floor pattern that they show in a whole lot of hip hop and rock videos. That's the law of opposites, right? Black and white, the law of opposites. Yeah. And so, with all that given right there, the God Aya, Jah, Yah, predates the Yah in Hebrew. And so, question, why are people following, in the case of us, following something that's not as old as the language that's being used to worship or to pay homage to? Why not follow the older creation stories, civilization stories, right? Records. I guess ultimately what I'm saying is, why are people Israelites and Christians versus Egyptians? Egyptian had a culture, a way of practicing life, right? And so just like you don't have to necessarily be from where Jesus or whoever started, Paul started Christianity, really. You don't have to be from uh, Antioch to be a Christian. You don't have to be in Egypt and be under the lineage of Egyptians to be an Egyptian, right? Because to be any of those, you're basically following a way of life. And it appears to be that the Egyptian cultural influence and spiritual practices that became religion is the oldest. Or we're more inclined as a people to gravitate towards the beauty of Het Kafata. That's the God Ayah 9MG Please like and subscribe if you made it this far. Pass the information around. This is just content, right? That makes you reason. Y'all hold it down. Stay great. Peace.